Hello, awesome students. It's Dr. Foltz. I'm going to show you how to cite YouTube videos for your essay using MLA format. Now, specifically, I'm going to go over how to create an entry for your Works Cited page, as well as how to do parenthetical and narrative citations. So let's talk about the entries for your Works Cited page. You need some information, of course. You need the author's name. Now, when we say author's name, we're talking about the actual creator of the video, not the YouTuber who uploaded the video. We need the title of the video as it appears on YouTube. We need the screen name of the YouTuber who uploaded the video. Then we also need the date when the video was uploaded, not when it was created, but when it was uploaded. And then last but not least, we need the URL. Now, when we get all that information, this is the way it should look like. Now, if you're not sure how to create what we call a hanging indent here, or really to format your Works Cited page, I've included a link in the description that will definitely help you out. But let's take a look at some of the specifics within this particular entry. That way you don't make some mistakes when you're creating your own. First of all, of course, it starts with the author's last name, but note there's a comma between the last name and the first name, as well as a period. Notice also that the title of the video is in quotation marks with a period. The word YouTube is there with an uppercase Y and an uppercase T. It is in italics. The phrase uploaded by must be included there. And then it has the screen name or the YouTube name. And then, of course, we have the date. Notice that the date starts with the day, not the month. And then the whole thing is ended with the period. So where do you get the information? Well, if we take a look at a typical YouTube page, you're going to find most of it right underneath the video itself. In this case here, here's the title of the YouTube video. Here is the YouTuber's name, Study with Dr. Foltz. And also here is the date. Now, look at the title. The title is quite long. You got to include the whole thing, including these lines that are included here. So make sure you get all that information, regardless of how short or how long the YouTube title is. And then last but not least, up top is where you're going to find that URL. Now, when you take all that information and you put it into this sort of template here, it should look something like this. Again, notice how long the title is. Notice that we still have quotation marks around it with the period. Notice, of course, too, we still have the phrase uploaded by with the YouTube name or YouTuber name. In this case here, it's Study with Dr. Foltz. Notice, too, the date starts with the day, and then YouTube, the URL itself, is at the end with the period. Now, if you don't know or cannot find, rather, the creator of the video, in this case here, our creator of the video is James Foltz. So if you can't find the creator's name, then what do? Well, all you have to do is not include it. That's it. So instead, your entry is going to start with the title of the video as opposed to the name of the person who created the video. So after you have this entry done, what do you need to do? How do you create a parenthetical citation? Well, grab the author's name and then grab what we call a timestamp. I'll talk about both of them right now. Of course, you don't have the author's name. You're going to do something else, so we'll save that. But the timestamp is kind of confusing at first, but straightforward once you understand it. You're going to have two numbers. You're going to have the number or the time for when you begin the quote, and then you're going to have the time for when the quote ends. So in this case here, we have hours, minutes, and then seconds. So the first set of numbers is hours, the middle set is minutes, and then the last set is seconds. Same thing with this other time frame, hours, minutes, seconds. So this is a range here. So let's hypothetically pretend that we pulled a quote from my Harrison Bergeron video that started at the 2-minute and 15-second mark. And let's pretend that the quote that we pulled lasted for 6 seconds in length. So this is why we would have 2 minutes, so 0 to 15 seconds, because it started at the 2:15 mark. It was a 6-second quote, so it's going to end at 2 minutes and 21 seconds. Notice that, of course, it didn't have any hour mark on there, but you still include that, except for you include it as a 00. And then again, you have the author's last name. But what do you do if you don't have the author's last name? You do the exact same thing that you would do to an extent if you didn't have the last name for the entry, except for rather than taking the entire title, you're going to take what's called a short form of the video's title. Well, what does that mean? So here's the entire title of the Harrison Bergeron video that we're citing here. This is way too long to put in this parentheses here. So we need to abbreviate this. I'm going to recommend we abbreviate down just to Harrison Bergeron. So what we do, we delete everything else. We just leave Harrison Bergeron. And then rather than having Foltz with the timestamp, what we're going to have is Harrison Bergeron with the timestamp. Notice that Harrison Bergeron is in quotation marks. This helps to differentiate between the author or a title being used for this citation. Notice also there is no punctuation between the title as well as the timestamp, except for the quotation marks. Same thing over here if you use fault. There is no punctuation between fault and the timestamp. So when you're using an author's name or if you're using the title, you shouldn't have any punctuation except for quotation marks around the title. And that's the way it should look. What about a parenthetical citation in terms of its location? Where does it go within the essay? It goes at the end of the sentence, but it goes before the period. Let's pretend that this is our sentence that we wrote within our essay. Let's pretend that within quotation marks, this is what we quoted from the Harrison Bergeron video that we watched. Notice it says that this is a sentence with an in-text quotation or quote to show the citation. Notice that the citation doesn't go after the quotation marks, but rather it goes at the end of the sentence before the period, however. And then, of course, if you had a title instead of the author's name, you would put the title here again in quotation marks at the end of the sentence. And again, the period comes after the citation. So what about a narrative citation? Where do we put a narrative citation? And actually, what is a narrative citation? Well, narrative citation is when you give some of this information that you would usually put in parentheses. You would use some of that information within the prose itself. So first of all, you use the same information for a narrative citation as you would for a parenthetical citation. So that means you need the author's last name, or you need to abbreviate the title in a short form. And then you also need the timestamp. So for our purposes, we're just going to use Foltz for the author's last name, and then we're going to use this particular timestamp here, 2:15 to 2:21. So let's pretend that we wrote this sentence here where it says Foltz said this awesome quote in his video. The difference between this citation versus the parenthetical citation, and you probably see it immediately, is that there's no author's name in here or there's no title name in here. Instead, the author name appears within the sentence. So in this case here, we're saying Foltz said this, and then this would be our pretend quote taken from Harrison Bergeron in his video. We don't need to put the title or the author's name in the citation because we've already put it up here, and to do so in both of them would be redundant. Now, what you could do, instead of saying 2:15, 2:21 within the parentheses here, you could include it within your prose. So instead, you could say something like, Foltz said at the 2-minute 15-second mark until the 2-minute 21-second mark, this awesome quote in his video. If you did that, it reads kind of cumbersome, so I would recommend against it. However, you are still allowed to do that, and if you did that, you would no longer need the citation at the end. So that's it. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to drop it in the comments. But in the meantime, always don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.